And welcome back to News Center. Thank you so much for staying with us. I'm seeing a number of tweets have already come through. Keep them coming. I'll sample them in a few minutes. For now, though, I want us to start our discussions. Remember, I told you we'll be discussing what the year 2017 holds for Kenyans. 2016 was probably not as nice. And so there are very many people who are hopeful. And one such person is Patrick Gathara, joining me here in studio. He is a journalist, writer, communication consultant. Thank you so much for joining us on News Center.
Thanks for having me.
So first things first, I saw an article that you did, I think was it yesterday, that 2016 was a really bad year for Kenyans.
Right.
So I don't want us to dwell a lot on 2016 because, we want some positivity into the year 2017. A time like this next year, what is it that you'd want to be different in regards to politics, which you're very passionate about, and any other thing that is you're passionate about?
Well, first, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I mean, looking back at what's gone on in 2016 and before, actually that's what should inform us what our expectations should be, I think, about 2017 and what our hopes should be. For me, a year from now, I want us to have had a successful election, because I think that's going to be the overriding theme of this year, at least for Kenyans. So the question really is whether we will have an election we can term to be successful. That is, it is credible, it is transparent, and it is free of violence. Okay. And I think going by the way we've ended 2016, there's a lot to be worried about. I think there is sort of a deficit in honesty on both sides on what we need to do to ensure that that actually happens.
Can the situation be salvaged with just 6 months now to the elections? Actually, let's say 5 months, actually.
I think, well, the election is in August, so we have about 8 months.
8 months, yeah.
But we're already late. And this is what, when I talk about us not being honest, this is what I mean. We've got a law that, for example, specifies the way we should run the election. It talks about the Elections Act in Section 44. Speaks about us having an electronic system that should be in place 8 months before the election. Now that 8 months was December. Yeah. Which means we're already late.
We're already late.
But we're not talking about that. We're talking about a backup. A backup to what?
So we've not yet. So we don't even have the main.
Yeah, we don't have the main one to begin with. And that's the law we should be talking about amending to begin with, so that we actually give time. The IEBC, I think, had said we should reduce our time to about 3 months before the election. But we're not talking about that. So we need to be honest about the challenges we face. The second thing is, I think, when we talk about backups, and about the manual system being a backup to electronic one, we've got to remember that the electronic system was put in place essentially because of the failure of the manual one. The fact that it was not credible, it was prone to
so we're on dancing chairs.
Yeah, precisely. So how can what was meant to be replaced be the backup?
Be the backup. I mean, there's so many issues, Gathara, about these elections. But it seems like, it's only Kenyans, the citizens who are worried. Everybody up there is almost causing chaos left, right, center. And we're here thinking, wait a minute, we should be having our house in order right now. Do you feel like it's just Kenyans who are worried about this thing?
Well, I think the main problem, has been a problem running along for the last 50 years, is there is the focus on the problems of politicians as opposed to the problems of Kenyans. So Kenyans can see that there is a problem with the coming election, with what has been put in place, what the law says, and what the reality is on ground don't match. But our political class is so focused on what their own problems are, and what it would mean if you change the law, whether it is for them to replace or displace the incumbent, or for the incumbent to retain power. It's really very much about who wins the elections, as opposed to whether the elections themselves turn out to be free and fair.
Talking about free and fair elections, I mean, there have been very intriguing developments in the last couple of days. And talking about the chair of the IEBC, the nominations, yesterday the Standard had a story that, laid everything bare, that probably the candidates, who have been forwarded to the president are just not the ones who should have been. I mean, looking at that, do you think that indeed we'll go into these elections with everybody's minds being very clear that it's going to be free and fair?
I think the selection process itself has already compromised the IEBC. And everybody's looking at what happened with the shortlisted candidates and stuff. But we've got to remember there were 750 people who applied for these positions. And then the selection panel came up with a shortlist of, I think, about 30. But never explained how it came up with that shortlist. Who are these 720 who were put aside and why? So already there's an opaqueness about the process that is very worrying. And then when you hear about the horse trading that went into deciding who the actual nominees were, you know, the fact that it wasn't the best, the ones who scored the highest.
That's a big problem.
It is a big problem, because then what is the whole point of replacing the IEBC if you're not going to replace it with a credible commission, with a commission that we think is composed of the best people we can get.
Okay.
You know?
Do you think that the fact that one of the nominees is Luya and the CEO, I beg your pardon, Ezra Chiloba is also a Luya, is that a big deal, really?
Well, for me, it's not really a big deal. The ethnicity of whoever runs it is secondary to whether
regional
or not.
balance, perhaps?
Well, I've always had a bit of a discomfort with the whole talk of regional balance, which to me seems to elide the need for merit. You know, that we actually elevate ethnicity to be the primary consideration as opposed to whether somebody can actually do the job. And I think for me it doesn't so much matter whether or not there are two Luyas or two Luos or two Kikuyus running it, you know, as much as whether the people who are there can be trusted to actually run a credible election. And don't forget, credibility is everything. The whole point of us having an electronic system, of insisting on changes after 2008, of getting rid of the ECK and replacing it with the IEBC, the whole point of that was to ensure credibility, whether people will believe the results that will be announced in August. And I think we have lost sight of that in this fight between politicians about who their own preferred candidates are. And don't forget, these people, their interest is simply winning the election.
Winning the election.
It's not about making sure it is fair.
No matter
or
whatever
however they win, they don't care.
Okay.
You know?
All right, that's interesting.